Welcome. This is the Season Long Podcast in support of the YouTube channel SeasonLongBaller. Hope you have had a wonderful summer. We are back. The NBA season is almost upon us. We're about, 5 or 6 weeks away. And we'll just go into a brief podcast today just to talk about where we are right now. A little bit of a preview as we're going forward. And of course, NBA 2K24 is now out. So remember, going back to last season, if you're new to the channel, here on Season Long Baller, we have a player build and we played the entire 82-game season last season, mirroring the season of the Washington Wizards. So last season, the Wizards, we did get the chip. We beat the Memphis Grizzlies in the finals 4-1 after, as you see here in our playoff bracket, beating the Pacers, the Bulls, and the Cavaliers, while the Grizzlies went through the Lakers, which of course didn't happen in real life, Denver, the Clippers, and then lost to the Wizards in the finals. We were the 1 seed in the East, finished 66-16. But you know what that said? That's on NBA 2K23. That's now in the past. We've got a new thing we've got to worry about. And now, as you see, NBA 2K24 is out. Came out, about 9-10 days ago now. And we will be doing the same thing. We will be going ahead and playing the full NBA season, mirroring the Washington Wizards' actual schedule. Now, speaking of the Washington Wizards, well, it is a slightly different team. Now, the head coach, Wes Unseld Jr., is still the same. So he did win a ring, but NBA 2K24 doesn't know that he won that ring. And the question I would have is, which I don't think you can do, is how you would bring those stats from NBA 2K23 over to 24. Now, I get that you can't bring the VC, obviously, but the grind of the 100-plus games we played last season, the 82-game regular season, and then the playoffs, well, how would you get all of those stats over into NBA 2K24, which I don't think you can. So when you look at Wes Unseld Jr.'s stats here, well, obviously you see in the coaching department, he only has 2 out of 5 stars. But in theory, in our league, he's the guy with the latest ring. So that's just one of those things that we'll have to, I guess we'll joke about as the season goes along. And this will be the second season, of course, for our player build, Jaymont Summerz. Now, what you see there is not the way Jaymont Summerz will finish. We'll talk about Summerz in a subsequent podcast in a couple of weeks, at least more in depth on how our player build is going to evolve. But the significant thing here is the Washington Wizards roster. That's why this is so significant. First of all, you'll notice that the best player on the Wizards now is Jaymont Summerz. He has taken a jump. He's an 84. Again, we'll talk a lot more about this. His draft class, Paolo Banchero, is also an 84. Now, in our simulation last season, in all 82 of our games, obviously Jaymont Summerz, or if you're new to the channel, Jaymont Summerz was the Rookie of the Year. So I do think it's fair that Summerz should have at least the same overall rating that Banchero has. And Banchero does have an 84. And we'll go into Summerz, as I mentioned, a little bit later on before the season starts. Probably in a couple weeks, we'll do another podcast and talk about Summerz more exclusively in terms of the player build and our thought process. Things, again, we'll talk about in like I said, in a future podcast. But what we want to talk about here is the Washington Wizards roster. Now, last season, I sang the praises of Kristaps Porzingis. He was Defensive Player of the Year. Yes, he led the league in blocks, and he was, I think, third in rebounding. We play 6-minute quarters, so that does have your stats a little bit compressed. But, again, he was second or third in rebounding, but led the league in blocks. That's pretty hard to replace, and I think we're going to find this season just how hard that is to replace. So the second leading scorer on the team, Summerz was first, but I did shoot the ball the most. But the second leading scorer on the team is gone because, as you know, in real life, he was traded to the Boston Celtics. I have opinions on that, too. We'll probably get to that sometime later as well. But Porzingis is now in Boston. So, obviously, he's not on the Wizards in NBA 2K24. Again, another obvious fact here is Bradley Beal, which in our simulation was the third leading scorer on the Wizards, is now in Phoenix. Again, that's obvious. another trade situation. And we know where Chris Paul was in the deal, ended up with the Warriors now. But your second and third leading scorers, your first and second highest rated players on the Wizards from NBA 2K23 are now no longer on the team. With Summerz' jump, he is the highest rated player on the team, as you see, with just an 84 over Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, who is now on the Wizards. Again, I know that's stating the obvious. But looking at the Wizards roster, now remember last season, the starting lineup, Summerz at the point, Beal was playing the 2, Kuzma was the 4 with Denny Avdia playing the 3, and Porzingis was the man in the middle. Now you're looking at 3 returning starters, Summerz, Kuzma, and Avdia. And Avdia, as you see, is a 76 overall, Kuzma being an 83. And you are missing 2 starters. Jordan Poole, we're going to slide him into the 2 is what I'm thinking here. So he will bring his 82 overall rating into the starting lineup. And then the center has to be Daniel Gafford, who was coming off the bench last season. Gafford, 6'10", good rebounder, defender, but not much of an offensive threat, especially in terms of, especially when compared to someone like Porzingis. This is going to be very interesting in terms of inside scoring for our Wizards. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure how the real Wizards are going to do a lot of inside scoring this season. We'll see. But for our immediate problems, the Wizards are losing a lot of offense. Like I said, they're losing their second and third leading scorers in terms of Bradley Beal and Porzingis. And we'll see Porzingis pretty early in the season. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the starting lineup again, Summerz, Kuzma, what I expect to be Summerz and Poole at the guards, Kuzma, and I'm assuming we'll go with Avdia again at the forward position. If you remember last season, Rui Hachimura started the season at the 3 position, and I guess Unseld Jr. changed the lineup and inserted Avdia, and we had Hachimura coming off the bench. Now, it's a good time to make a mention that things that happen in real life during the season will not affect us during the season here in our simulation during our 82 games. And the biggest example of that, which I know you've heard me mention a lot of times, was Rui Hachimura being traded to the Lakers in February. But in our simulation, he was still on the Wizards and still a contributing member of our bench. Now, with NBA 2K24, he is obviously an LA Laker. But I'm assuming that Avdia will start at the 3. Although, as you see here, he's listed as a 4, as a power forward here. And then the center will be Gafford. Now, if Avdia ends up being a 4 in this year's simulation, then who's playing the 3? And I would think that Corey Kispert would be a very highly likely candidate. And then Bilal Coulibaly, who is the Wizards' first-round draft pick from this previous draft, I guess he would be in the mix for playing small forward as well. Finally, one other note to make on this starting lineup. Obviously, you know that the Wizards did acquire Jones, as you see here, 27 years old, the 4th highest rated player here on NBA 2K24 on the Wizards, a 79 overall. He will be the starter for the actual Wizards. For us, he's going to be backing up Jaymont Summerz and last season's backup, Monte Morris, who provided a lot of bench support and helped the Wizards win the ring, is now in Detroit. That's probably not, obviously, compared to Beal and Porzingis, that is not going to get a lot of press, but Morris is no longer on the team, so Jones is going to be the backup point guard. And in terms of backup point guards, we know he's a good backup point guard in real life when he was with Memphis, but he wanted a starting role, and that's why he's with the Wizards. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about him when we do talk about Jaymont Summerz in a subsequent podcast. So a quick look at the Wizards' schedule. We will start off with the Pacers, which is exactly how we started off last season. But here's the big one. The Memphis Grizzlies come up on October 28th. And as you see, we open on October 25th. The Grizzlies will be our first home game on the 28th. Now, if we were conspiracy theorists, as if the NBA cares about what we're doing, we're going to do the ring ceremony at home against the team we beat in the finals. How spicy is that? So that will be a good, fun game on the 28th. And the other note, of course, is Ja Morant. Morant's been suspended. But in our league, he's probably still going to be playing. The reason I can safely say that is Miles Bridges from the Hornets was a contributor for the Hornets all last season. He was never suspended off of the game. Now, I did try to stash him per se, but you couldn't get rid of him because I'm not messing with the rosters exactly. So he would still play, and he's a good player. So he wouldn't start the game, but he would end up coming in the game later and hitting a couple shots before he'd be benched. So I'm not sure how we'll play this time. I mean, we do have a few weeks, obviously, before the season starts. So maybe we can, I don't know, stash again Ja Morant so he can't start, but I can't control him for the rest of the league. And that, of course, will have a major difference in how our league will play out. Now, the next game you may notice is October 30th. The Boston Celtics come to town, and that is when we will get our first look at Kristaps Porzingis in a Celtics uniform. We'll be looking forward to that as well, and I'm sure that is going to make the Celtics on this game much more difficult to beat. We beat them 2 out of 3 meetings, I believe it was last season, maybe 3 out of 4, but they did miss Jason Tatum for a long time. Again, injuries in our league will obviously be different than injuries in the real NBA, and Tatum missed a good portion of the season last year. However, they did beat us without Tatum, so I can say that. Now they've got reinforcements. Marcus Smart, of course, we're going to see him in the previous game against the Grizzlies. It's worth noting that he probably will, well, at least in theory, should be starting at the point guard position for the Grizzlies. And we'll not see him, obviously, with the Celtics on the 30th. And then the final note, you know the battles we had with the Atlanta Hawks, split with them last season, 2 games apiece. A division opponent. Didn't play them until later in the season, but we're going to get them on November 1st this season, day after Halloween. So this should prove to be a very interesting start of the season. And on the road on November 3rd, Jaymont Summerz' career high is 33. Remember, we play 6-minute quarters against the Miami Heat after Bradley Beal had been injured a couple games previous. So we've got an interesting start to the season. We will talk more about that as we go along, but it should be fun as we go, as we start off in NBA 2K24. As you see, the first game of the season will be on October 25th. That is when we will be kicking off our simulation. We will be playing as our player build NBA's 2K23's Rookie of the Year, Jaymont Summerz. Hope you have had a wonderful summer. Hope to see you again as we begin the journey for this season. If you are new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. Check out our entire playlist for last season, regular season, and last season's playoffs. We played the entire 82-game season. We will be mirroring the Washington Wizards schedule. So when the Wizards play, we will be playing just like that schedule you saw there. You have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks for podcast number 34. That's it for Season Long Baller. We appreciate you here. Peace.